podcast. I am here to talk about my blockchain course. Hello, everyone who is tuning in to this live stream. I'm streaming to both Periscope and YouTube at the moment, so you can catch them both there. So, I finished my first week of the blockchain course. And I didn't finish all my modules. However, I'm not going to lie, I had a kind of busy week and I got through most of it. There's like 5 modules. I got through like 3.5, almost 4. So, I'm playing catch up, if anything. But I got a few notes here on things that hit my mic, on things that I wanted to talk about. Just recapping the course, telling you what I observed, learned, and is it worth it so far? Again, I did get a full scholarship to the course, so I'm very grateful for that. So here we go. So the first module is mostly about money and why we have money. Why is money made? Where does money come from? And it kind of tells you the basics and takes you back to the beginning of money and how we used to barter and things like that. So things that I kind of like highlighted from that course. First of all, he kind of opens up the course with the concept of, blockchain is only popular because of Bitcoin. And we hear that a lot. And it didn't hit me that, nobody was talking about blockchain before Bitcoin, kind of became a thing. So, shout out to Bitcoin for that one. But let me see here. Okay. So he was talking about our current systems for the banks, and that's kind of like where the course kind of started off and where I started to gain interest. So currently with our banking system, they are kind of the ones who create the money for the most part. We know that the Fed prints and, there's not necessarily the same amount of money in circulation that we have accessibility to. We hear all these things all the time, and it kind of makes you think why do we have these things in place? Why is it like this? So let me see here. Look at my notebook. I tend to forget my things. So commodity money. So gold and silver are known as, commodities. They're not particularly something that if you take to, the government, they will say, okay, well, we'll give you X amount for this. It's not something that's particularly redeemable by the banks. It's something that can be accepted. Not everywhere it can be accepted, like collectible coins, things like that. A lot of people think that cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, is considered to be a commodity because it's kind of like gold and silver, where not everywhere it may be accepted, but you can transfer it for some level of goods. So I like that he touched on that. It's very important to know what commodity money is and how cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin, is in fact a commodity. We also talked about credit and how a loan basically begins where it ends and it ends where it begins and vice versa. So meaning whenever you get a loan from a bank, of course, you eventually end up paying back the loan, and whatever debt which was at that point in time issued to you as a credit was there, it nullifies. No movement actually happens, which ties into why at no point in time would there ever be the same amount of money, let's say, held by, fractional banking, which is what a lot of banks we see do these days. Most banks are fractional banks. Surprise. That is something that started when the inception of credit and banknotes and loans and things like that started, because there was no actual reason for the bank to have that money liquid. It didn't need to have any liquidity at any point in time because it was going to end where it started. So it's kind of interesting how the professor kind of tied those things in and made those connections, because it makes more things make sense. When everything's broken up and you think about it and you connect it, then it makes sense. But for some people, it doesn't come as easy. Storage fees and interest and how that came to be. So it used to be back in the day where goldsmiths, which we now call banks, used to have storage fees for the currencies that they would collect, or gold, And now what they used to do was they used to give a fee to hold on to your things. The same way that some bank accounts, if you don't have enough money there, they will give you a fee. Like if you don't have a direct deposit or have over, $2,000 in like a checking account, some banks will give you a fee as like a maintenance fee because they're not particularly sure whether or not you will in fact keep having revenue going into that account. So that kind of became nullified back in the day, or reduced to where gaining interest and high yield savings account and all that stuff came from the fact that if a goldsmith gave you the option of storing this gold so he could make money off either investing it or trading it or whatever, they would then give you interest, which is how interest came to be and how most storage/saving fees for Goldsmith kind of like disappeared. So thought that was interesting. I didn't particularly know that fact, but thought it was interesting how he went over that in that course and taught, again, how the inception of money and interest and credit came to be. So let me see here. Something else I thought was interesting, which I know happens a lot in Africa that he went over, was during the Great Depression, there were obviously shortages of, currency and supply that was circulating at that point in time. The banks didn't have enough money to give to the people. So people needed to get creative. And at the time, they were trading the New York tokens for the subway. And that became a way of currency at that period of time. And I hear that happen a lot in countries like Africa these days, where they're trading phone minutes, which is also a thing that, happened as we grew as a civilization. And it kind of shows you that as long as there's a general consensus of acceptability towards something, money doesn't particularly need to be, assigned, nor does it need to be, anything specific. It doesn't necessarily need to be tangible. It can be anything as long as there's like a general consensus of acceptance. So, I thought that was interesting. There was also a story that he was telling about this island, the Japanese. So the Japanese were I'm not sure where the Japanese, I know it's off the Pacific. So basically they would build, their currency were rocks, and they were pillars that had huge holes in them. And the bigger the pillar, basically the more money that pillar was like worth in their society. So they would, money is a community agreement. Yes, it is. Money is a community agreement. So what they would do is they would, instead of moving these pillars, they would leave them exactly where they were if they were too heavy, and just kind of like reassign ownership. Which kind of, reminds me, not necessarily of the blockchain, but like, it's not necessarily something they needed to have. It's just something that they kind of just agreed upon. So I don't know, thought that was neat. Old way of money, and how in today and age, how we're reapplying those like basic concepts that kind of existed way back when. There was even a rock that they were transporting to the island that sunk, but they still assigned it to someone, even though they couldn't touch it, they couldn't hold it. It was at the bottom of the ocean. They couldn't really give it to anyone, but they knew based off just like assignment of the rock who it belonged to and the size of the rock, how much it was worth. So I don't know. Thought those were all cool things. That's what I've kind of picked up on so far. I'm going to say that that's about it. Thoughts and feelings on the course so far. So it's been pretty good. I just have to finish module 1 because I'm technically supposed to be on module 2. I'm a little behind, but whoops. I had a busy week. So, my family came over and they kind of just show up. They just showed up. They didn't tell me. They kind of just like, hey, we're here. And I'm like, okay. Fuck my plans. So, and I like it so far. I like the format so far. It's a video format. If anyone's interested in checking out the course or information about it, it's at the Blockchain Center's website, blocktaincenter.com. It's a pretty good course, and I can't regret it yet. There's a lot of things and a lot of, I want to say, verbiage and terms that had become more solid with me, and not necessarily that I didn't know, the concept, but, just kind of like some of the stuff was refreshing. Some of the stuff was new, applicative wise. So I don't know. I like it so far. I think it's a good place for someone who has the concept of finance to start. It's definitely not particularly a beginner course, but it's good. I like it. All right, I have some comments here. Yeah, the European came in and flooded the markets with technically the people didn't have. Yeah, I mean that's kind of how fractional, banking works and all that. Um, we don't really have, anything, but that's how they make money. If money is actually liquid, the way that liquidity works is really interesting. If money is actually liquid, the more liquidity you have, the less chance of you making an interest, and the more the value of your money decreases. So it's better for banks or, anyone, generally speaking, to have less liquidity when they have something, so that it's actually growing in some, way. Like your dollar devalues faster than the rate that, the economy is moving. Like we are growing out of one area, meanwhile your dollar is like down there, and it's like, hey, just chilling, and it's just getting further and further away. You can't get it. And I mean, that's just kind of how the economy works. But yeah, I want to say that's it for my update on my course. I will try to do these once or twice a week, just to kind of talk about the course and, kind of my journey on the course, because I am super, again, grateful for the full scholarship to that course. Again, if you guys want to check it out, that's blockchaincenter.com. So stay tuned with me. This is Annalise BNT. I'll see you guys around. Thanks for tuning in.